Hello, everybody. Welcome to the best case scenario. I'm your co-host D Johnson, along with friends of the people,
Robert Kelly.
and I'm gonna try to keep this one short because last week ran a little hung and it ran a little hot. But we're gonna jump right into it today. I don't know if anybody has been paying attention to the news, but we finally got the long-awaited Mueller report, and we also got the long-awaited Mueller hearing. First thing I'm gonna say right off the bat, very disappointed in it. I found that Mueller was a very limp individual in front of Congress. He made himself look very doddering. And by that, I simply mean you shouldn't have to ask 15 times to repeat that damn question. You're stalling, and I got you, bro. I know you'll want to answer the questions the hard-hitting way, but we all know that your report said that there was obstruction of justice that was committed by the president. You said it in the congressional hearing, but like, why can't you commit to it? That was my problem the whole time. You know what I mean? I definitely found it to be very, 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 very sad for the Democrats that were banking on getting some hot shit because you didn't get what you was looking for. But I did find it also very interesting. The Republicans were very hot about it too because it makes them look like they're working with somebody who colluded with the Russians and is actually an acting criminal while still president. What do you think, man?
I think Mueller did a good job. I think he answered the questions he wanted to answer. The ones he didn't want to answer, he didn't answer. He pointed to his report.
He stayed in the box. He stayed in that box.
Yeah, because you got to protect the credibility report. Because the Republicans, their questions focused on Mueller's credibility in actually the compilation of the report. So if the Democrats are asking questions about the report and you're going outside of the report to answer the questions, that would mean, but if you lean on the credibility of the report, you're standing by your word. You're standing by his words. You're standing by what he said. And I gotta congratulate him a little bit because give him props because he's a conservative. And what he was doing was going against his own party.
Oh God, Ty.
What's up, Tyrone? What's up, man? But what he's doing is going against his own party. He doesn't want to be remembered as the guy that got the president indicted or impeached or whatever. He doesn't want to be that guy. That's why he wouldn't even say the word impeachment during the hearing, even though they tried to get him to do it. And he just looked really uncomfortable, but he was being truthful. Betty, what's up? What's up?
Love y'all too. I love y'all for always tuning in. But here's my question to you though, man, because at one point they asked him more than once, like if it was a member of Congress, could they indict him? And he said, yeah. So are we at a point in our society where the president is literally above the law until he's not? Is the office of president above incrimination?
Well, this ain't nothing new. I mean, it's in the Constitution that you can't. It doesn't say you can't indict the president in the Constitution, but it gives you how do you try how do you try the president for high crimes and misdemeanors?
Richard Nixon got the fuck out of Dodge, bro. He the fuck out of Dodge when he knew he was dead to rights on Watergate. And I think having Russian interference in an election that you utilize to your benefit is probably a little bit worse. That's just me.
Maybe. I think that, first of all, the report, if you go by the report, there was no Russian interference. There was no interference by Trump. There was no
There was no interference by Trump. There was definitely Russian interference. And they even said that's going to go into the 2020 election, which immediately upon them creating a group, a special counsel to start to monitor it, the Trump administration put up a block for that. So what I'm telling you is, Mueller, him going in there and saying that there's these things going on, and could you indict a president for that? Yes. Then why aren't we? It's fine. If you don't want to say the word impeach, I think indictment is just as bad as impeachment.
Indictment is and impeachment are the same thing. An impeachment is an indictment. But what he's saying is that the prosecution, the attorney general, they can't bring charges against the president.
No,
the only people that can do that is Congress.
Well, William Barr ain't gonna do that anyway.
Right. So he left it in the hands of Congress to act with the information. But what his testimony actually did was just solidify the credibility of the report in terms of what he was actually saying,
Right.
as far as an interpretation of the report. The interpretation of the report is no conspiracy, right?
Hold on, because now you're going too far.
Very possible.
What he said was,
obstruction of justice.
I can't say.
No, he said in
there
the
was.
first.
I can't say that there wasn't.
No,
it was in
the report. He said there's not enough. Hold on. He said not enough evidence to charge him with conspiracy, and it said that in the report. That means
it said that, but he also
that doesn't mean it didn't happen. What I mean is not enough.
Happen.
Well, it's not about whether it happened or not. It's not about what happened. It's about what you can prove.
No. I'm saying as far as him saying there was no definitive answer either way.
And then on the obstruction of
I
justice,
don't like waffles, bro.
But on the obstruction of justice, it was much more clear.
Oh yeah, he was very much.
He was very clear that there was enough evidence to indict. Perhaps he said, and perhaps indict the president on obstruction of justice. But he left that in Congress' hands. Yeah. He didn't recommend an indictment, and then he said that he did not have the power to indict. And the whole point of the special investigation was not to bring indictment. It was to give Congress an opportunity to do oversight on the executive branch, which is their job.
Checks and balances.
There you go. So the report's in, and it looks very, very clear. That's why Donald Trump is furious. He's swinging back.
I mean, I was reading his Twitter feed during the hearing, and I mean, kind of one of the funniest things I ever seen him say, like, you know how confident Trump is. You know how confident he is. You know, he does not mince words. But one of the things that he said immediately was like, I never know. Why didn't they do this to Obama? Why didn't they do this to Hillary? Why didn't they do this to, Bill when he was in office? Blah, 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 blah. And it was almost like he was, that was the first time that you actually saw Twitter fingers sweat. You feel what I'm saying?
Well, when you didn't do something, when you actually did something and trying to get away with it, sometimes you try to point to other people. Yeah. And try to blame people. If you didn't do anything, you just be like, hey, I didn't do anything.
Period. And that's kind of like I've always been a firm believer in where there's smoke, there's a fire. And if it's in your front yard, bro, you might want to put the hose out instead of trying to call the fire department. And I don't know that he has that ability anymore because he's gotten a lot of people in his camp that they've lost credibility. I mean, he had what's my boy's name? What's my boy's name that's in prison right now? His lawyer, I can never remember these names. I'm sorry, y'all. But his lawyer went to court, or his lawyer went there and testified against him. You know what I'm saying? His lawyer was a scumbag. Michael Cohen, there it is. But Cohen was a scumbag, and everybody knows Cohen was a scumbag. To be a lawyer, you got to be a scumbag. But I don't think he was not telling the truth. I don't think he was not telling the truth about Trump. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, his boy got arrested. Mason, was it Roger Mason, got arrested? I mean, like, they stormed his house with the feds. And he's out of prison right now, all because he violated a gag order. I mean, there's a lot of reason that you can take the Mueller report and break it down to make it fit your rhetoric if you want. But all I'm saying at the end of the day is, if you're going to have a hearing in front of Congress and you're going to say that you don't believe that he colluded with the Russians, but you can definitely see that there's obstruction of justice that has happened. I mean, how Republican-ran Senate, don't see it making it through, but I can't see why we haven't started the process of impeachment.
Well, the reason is because basically because of precedent.
Yeah,
when Bill Clinton was impeached during his trial, I guess.
Sexual misconduct. For lack of a better term, let's just call it that.
Which I don't know, grown people doing grown stuff. I don't know how it was.
The same thing happened. What was wrong with that? I always wanted to ask somebody because you're married, so I can understand like it being something handled in court.
It wasn't really. I don't know how against the law it was.
Right.
But they used it to try to embarrass him. I think because they knew they weren't going to get the votes too.
Of course not. I mean,
he didn't. Matter of fact, he got the vote. It was a Republican House.
Yeah,
he got the votes in the House. He didn't get the votes in the Democratic Senate. So that was the same thing that happened. But they wanted to put it on record because they were trying to make sure that when the elections came, that they were discrediting the Democratic Party.
And it didn't work
because it was he was on his way out. It was his second term.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
It was near the end of his second term.
George W. immediately after, so maybe it did. You know what I mean? Maybe Maybe it did.
And it was, and then the platform, part of the platform that George W. Bush ran on was actually a return to morals. So let me get into a tweet from Donald Trump that he made on the 23rd of July. So after Mueller's testimony.
Okay.
So the same day, I think the 23rd was the same day of the testimony. He says, so Robert Mueller has now asked for his longtime never Trumper lawyer to sit beside him and help him with answers. What's this all about? His lawyer represented the basement server guy who got off free in the Crooked Hillary case. This should not be allowed. Rigged witch hunt. So that's quoting Donald Trump's tweet. So, and it was Aaron Zebley is the guy that Trump was referring to to sit beside him. But if you're going to testify in front of Congress about something, a legal matter of some sort, it's a good idea to have a lawyer.
Legal counsel. That's kind of what they tell you.
So it's like it's a witch hunt because he hired a lawyer.
I mean, dude, they tell you that when you go to county jail. You might want to shut the fuck up and let your public defender do the talking. You always want to have legal counsel. But one of the very interesting things about this hearing that I didn't even realize was at one point, there were people that were antagonistic towards Donald Trump. I forget the two people's names, but they worked underneath Robert Mueller during the time they were gathering the evidence, and they were fired. And that was the Republican that was a Republican representative that went ham on that to say, you're supposed to be out here trying to find the truth, but it looks more like you're just another puppet head in this situation. You weren't even really digging for the facts. Mueller was definitely taken aback by that. He looked like he'd been hit in the stomach because I don't think he thought that the Republican Party was going to attack him as hard as they did. And I'm actually pretty impressed that the Republicans pressed that issue as hard as they did, because if there's one bad thing that comes from this for the Democrats, y'all looked unprepared and y'all didn't look like y'all wanted the hard. Once you didn't get exactly what you wanted him to say heard, you wildered away to nothing. You just quieted down. It was just like, oh, he didn't say the president he did it wrong. Fuck it, we don't care now. We don't have anything else to say. That's all they came looking to do. But the Republicans came looking for some way to make sure that they don't have another representative in the House as president that's making them look as bad as they do right now. And that was just very, very interesting. That when I found out, I want to look those two people that they worked on the Mueller. Can you do that for me? They worked on the Mueller. They were part of the Mueller investigation. But anyway, the point is, even without him looking it up, there's always an air of around any investigation with President Trump in the last 3 years. It's always been, whether it's a friend that's arrested for something that has to do with the Russians, his son, there's all these investigations, but they lead nowhere. It's all smoke and mirrors, and really thought that at this point, the Republicans are getting tired of it because it's starting to make it look like Peter Strzok. Thank you very much, Ty. And the FBI, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page was also with the FBI. They were lovers, and they both hated Donald Trump, and they were gathering the information, and they were immediately recused out of the investigation. Like, why? You know what I mean? And that was why
Well, here's Donald Trump's tweet concerning that. He says, "Why didn't Robert Mueller and his band of 18 angry Democrats spend any time investigating crooked Hillary Clinton, lying and leaking James Comey, who he fired, right? Lisa Page and her psycho lover Peter S. and Andy McCabe, and the beautiful Orb family, Fusion GPS, and many more, including himself and Andrew W."
Hey, why we got to investigate them, dog? They ain't the ones in office right now fucking up.
Well, his whole little thing with that is that when he talks about Mueller's 18 Democrats, was that Mueller has a team around him, of course, being an investigator and a lawyer, right? And he has lawyers around him. His team is 13 of those 17 members of his team are Democrats, registered Democrats, 4 of them with no political affiliation. And 6 of them actually donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign. So what he's doing is he's trying to say, because these people have a political affiliation, that there's a political agenda behind it. Now, Mueller did actually praise the team on July 24th at the Judiciary Committee hearing, and saying that they conducted the investigation in a fair and independent manner, and saying they were individuals of the highest integrity. So again, Mueller's a Republican himself, so I don't think he was, the one that set the tone and the policy for the investigation, being the leader on this investigation. So I don't think he would have really tolerated some kind of partisan,
right.
partisanship, and then come and say that these people were individuals of highest integrity.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just another smokescreen being thrown up by Donald Trump on this one, and I'm interested as to know as to why. I'm not gonna, I mean, I think this is America. You're innocent until proven guilty, and I think the Democrats have to do their job on
Much
this.
better. Yeah,
Even
really
if
want
it comes
that.
back with a not guilty or no, on the impeachment itself.
I mean, even if there's a mistrial,
the DA charges people all the time.
That's what I'm saying.
For shit that they fight and get off of.
I mean, the court of public opinion in this particular instance is definitely one that needs to see it, just because, I mean, we're talking about somebody we're voting for.
Well, and the thing is, though, again, like I wanted to bring up, and I didn't. I guess I lost my point last time. I didn't bring it up. Basically, when Clinton was impeached, after his impeachment, the polls showed that his popularity rose.
Yeah.
And so I think that in a way that because of that precedent, I think that the Democrats are afraid to do that before an election, have it blow up in their face.
Right.
Because if you do, they want to beat them at the ballot box, and if you don't beat them at the ballot box, you still have something in your back pocket you can do. You can impeach him at that point. You still have time. You can still impeach him at that point.
Before he gets that inauguration.
Tyrone says Trump is a criminal. He knows how to keep his hands out of crime. That's
Look,
right.
man,
I
would be honest though. I would be honest with you about Trump, and it hurts my feelings that it even happened. But like Trump actually had the nerve to get out and say, "I can't believe they hold my freaking American ASAP Rocky in prison, and there should be something done about this." And when you say criminal, you're understating it. Like, the dude knows how to just placate, pander, and it's like he's the biggest vote pimp I've ever seen. Like, popularity pimp ever. Like, we all know you don't like black people, bro. All of a sudden, ASAP Rocky is African American. Like, bro, what is you doing?
I think that more than anything, I think that he doesn't have a problem with I think that more than anything, he's a xenophobe more than anything.
Oh yeah.
So I think that he doesn't
like
he's pointing out Sweden because Sweden is
with an orange toupee.
Sweden is a democratic socialist country.
Of course.
So he wants to start that fight.
You know what?
And
I applaud him for starting it, but what I don't like what he's doing is on the back half, he is literally trying to pander to that black vote. And I was talking to somebody about it. That I was on the horn with my guys last night. We was playing some video games, and the first thing that the guy said, it's a white guy. He was like, "I can't believe he's trying to steal the black vote." And the second thing he said was, and not only that, we're talking about two rich people. ASAP Rocky openly said he don't give a fuck about black people that are poor. He don't live that problem. He lives in Soho and he lives in Beverly Hills. He don't know about the Black Lives Matters movement. He don't care about poor black people. So why do we give a fuck about ASAP Rocky?
Well, that's because ASAP's lost. And we're not trying to reach just hold on. We're not gonna preach to the choir and act like, oh, we're woke and we're only talking to other woke black people.
True.
I don't give a fuck. That's your brother.
I'm not saying I'm not.
It's your wayward brother. I got people in my family say some crazy shit. Hold on.
Go ahead.
I got people in my family say some crazy shit. And I'm still down with them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. ASAP Rocky is in another country, you know what I mean, for something that he should have been able to bail out on. First of all, it's a fight. People were following him like paparazzi. Him and his bodyguard got into it with him.
Okay.
He should be able to bail out on that.
He should.
Okay.
But he can't.
And he can't because he's going to leave Sweden and never come back. And then
even though you in the Benz, you still a nigga in a coupe, and he forgot that along the way somewhere. And so you can say he lost. I agree with you, but guess who found him? But Trump, and guess what Trump found?
No, but I'm with it. Look, I'm not going to sit here and criticize Trump if he honestly wants ASAP Rocky to be released and come back to the United States. I'm with him on that.
I'm with him too.
So that's
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like the whole situation stinks.
Right. He was only 24 when he said that stuff. I've said some stupid shit.
At 24 too?
At 24.
I'm not saying, but he's never recanted it. He's never apologized for it. And I mean, I wear this t-shirt simply because the internet never forgets. And that's what came up when it came time for him to feel bad for it. You didn't see the public outcry that we would have seen with somebody like a Kendrick Lamar. Public would have lost their mind if they locked Kendrick Lamar up like that. But I mean, we didn't forget what you said, ASAP. And I mean, you getting unfairly treated where you are. That is a global tragedy.
I doubt he's getting unfairly treated. The prisons in Sweden are sweet compared to the United States. But he's still locked up.
The story is he's getting mistreated. The story is he's getting held without. He just got indicted after 2 months. Keep that in mind. Like, and I mean,
they don't got
the story that goes behind that was G-Eazy, which is kind of why, you know, if you're a black person, you should be a little concerned about it, was because G-Eazy got caught in a club sniffing cocaine and beat up a bouncer and walked out hours after that. And all he had to do was pay the bouncer $900 and pay a fine to the country. That is crazy because cocaine is internationally against the law. Defending yourself shouldn't be, but I'm simply going on the tangent to go all the way back to say Trump knows he's a criminal, but he's smart when he knows how to use that to his advantage.
When you get talking about Trump, man, Trump's got this thing. It's like, and you can see it in a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of rich New Yorkers.
Yeah.
Where they've got this kind of bravado that they kind of toss their money around and say, how you doing, sweetheart type shit. And they all have these like may or may not have mob ties type of swagger. And they always talk with this little like, oh, but like, I can get you hit type of shit. You know what I mean? Like everybody, like, you know what I mean? Because think about it, like, you know, it's almost like everybody's got, it's like a George Steinbrenner or something, got that kind of, like, you know.
He's a businessman, but is he?
He's a businessman. I'm not a mobster, but I know some guys that I can get you hit. That's a New York swagger. That's New York rich man swagger, and that's normal. So Trump, there's a lot of Donald Trumps in New York. That's the thing. Well, there's not a lot of them because they're not all rich, but there are some rich. There's a rich. All the billionaires. Thinkers. There's a lot of billionaires that are like Donald Trump. The billionaires in New York, they're like Donald Trump. You don't even got to be like that. You just got to be making money because you got these like Italian guy, be like a restaurant owner or something, and he's like that. You know what I mean? He's like, oh yeah, the swagger. Like, you know, he talks with the little mobs. The mob swagger or something like that.
You don't want to
when you see a brother.
Man, I know people.
Right. It's like when you see a brother and he just talks like he's a gang member. He's not a gang member, but he sounds like one.
My favorite word is I'm affiliated.
Right. Or my people. Like out in California, that's what people say. I'm not from nowhere. Some people say this from. They can't just say I'm not from nowhere. Well, I'm not from nowhere. I'm from nowhere, but my family, my people is from Long Beach.
Yeah.
Like they want to let you know that I have that kind of connection. They want to let you know they're connected in some kind of way. And Trump has got that same kind of, you know, greaseball, Italiano mobster type of shit going on.
Well, I mean,
that's what he grew up wanting to be. He thought that shit was cool.
I've always
hey Terry, thank you so much.
Shout out, I appreciate you for that. One of the things that I will always say about Donald Trump is he knows how to be in the right place at the right time.
Right.
And that's, you know, I mean, even in this report, he knew to stay off camera, but stay on Twitter.
Right.
Because I swear to God, there's people that probably were watching it that tuned off of CNN and went straight to his Twitter feed just so they could see what he would say about it. And he had things to say that his base loved. His base loves that stuff. But the scary part is, you know, like when he starts tapping into the black vote like he's doing here, and like,
no, listen, I gotta say this because it's a non-story. Trump, no, because look, Trump won about 13% of the black vote last time. He's gonna get about 13% again. I mean, and it's a non-story like Trump getting the black vote. See, the thing is, the funny thing is that Republicans can do stuff for black people, right? And black people will not say the same things they say about Democrats doing something for black people.
True.
When a Democrat does something for black people, they're trying to pander in some kind of way. When a Republican does something for black people, it's the Republicans. It's almost like there's this craze, like because there's a growing contingent of black people that want to root for the Republicans or want to root against it, that are rooting against the Democratic Party and want to root for the Republicans, but they know they sound like idiots doing so. So they're looking for opportunities to say, you see, the Republicans do care about us. But let me let you guys know. I mean, out of the people that are watching right now, I know you guys know. The Republican Party does not give a damn about black people. The Democratic Party gives a damn about black people about this much. And so what we're talking about when we're talking about these political parties and doing things. For black people. First of all, if you care about me as a person, you would be doing stuff. You wouldn't be doing stuff. You would just be doing. It'd be coming out of you naturally. I wouldn't have to question if you're racist or not. I have friends of other races that I don't have to question. Oh, is he like an undercover?
I watched this show called
I don't have to question
F is for Family. Have you ever watched F is for Family? It's on it.
I'm allergic to bad TV.
It's on Netflix. The one thing about it though is the third season. It's the reason I like it because it's the third season. This black guy, his name is Rosie. He works for an airline. He finds out finally that he's just getting he realizes the whole thing. He knows it already, but he realizes the whole thing is that there's no voice. And the alderman for his community gets caught doing some inappropriate activity. He gets kicked out of office. They're immediately trying to push in his son, who is just as bad. And he decides to run for office. And the whole point I'm even making with that is there's a guy that worked with him at the airline that would come up to him every time and would read off of his hand sentiment. And he would say to him, like, dude, if you really felt that way, why the fuck are you reading your hand? And he was like, well, because I want to make sure that I'm saying it correctly. So I'm with my man's friends and the people on that every day. Like, if it came out of you naturally, if it's what you really felt, it wouldn't sound so rehearsed half the time when we hear it. Again, that's why I love my man Bernie Sanders, because it just doesn't sound rehearsed. Everybody keeps asking me, like, why do you like Bernie Sanders? Why do you like Bernie Sanders? Because when I listen to the dude, I don't feel like he's reading off a teleprompter.
Well, he's not reading off a teleprompter, but it is rehearsed. He's been saying the same thing.
You know what I'm
he's
saying.
He's been saying the same thing for years, and that's the thing.
I mean, but that is just,
that?
If you said the same thing for years, and you say the same things for years, and they say the same thing, you eventually either you sell yourself to BS, or you really, really believe it.
Okay, real quick.
What do you want?
I think everybody's pretty much a regular here, but if not, click the like, subscribe, and make sure you hit the notification bell. And tomorrow, because you really want to be on that, because tomorrow I'm going to be on 101.5 KHSX Houston talking to the representative of the ADOS community about ADOS, presidential candidates, the Black Agenda. And it's going to be spectacular. I know Tyrone is going to be there. He's going to call it down the middle. It's going to be...
let me know what time to start.
9 o'clock a.m.
All right. I'm going to try my best to tap in about 10. I'll go to lunch.
The show starts at 8 o'clock a.m. You might want to just make sure you're tuned in to the show. You know, put it in your earbuds.
Put it in your earbuds. You already know how I do.
Right. Put it in your
one
earbuds.
One ear for sales, one ear for the education. That's
there you
how
go.
we do it.
Yeah, that's right, Tyra. Hey, you know what? I can't wait either, because I've been wanting to talk to somebody from the ADOS community, just in sincerity.
Yeah.
In sincerity. And I know because we're on the radio, we ain't got to worry about cussing each other out. So I'm excited.
If y'all tuned in last week, you know it gets a little heated when we talk about that movement.
Yeah. But if you watch the show on Friday, if you do listen to the show, if you watch the show on Friday, you know, friend of the people is always for all the smoke. So if you ever wanted to debate, if there's ever anything you hear on here that you didn't like, you want to debate me on it, I stand by everything that I say on here. I'm not just saying it out of nothing. I'm just saying it. I'm saying it because I actually believe what I say.
For that, right? Tell them, Ty.
No cussing, no fines. Right. I was surprised y'all let Greenland back on the show. I was surprised you let Greenland back on the show. I'm surprised you gave him yes, smoke is always welcome. No cussing,
no fire,
no fines. Right.
Smoke, all smoke, no fire.
Right. We just go. You know. So it is what it is. You know. Anybody that knows me knows I am pro reparations. I'm pro
reparations
ADOS.
too. I'm anti BS, and that's the problem I've had with the whole movement since I started learning about it and digging into it. Like me and somebody else were talking about the other day. They say that giving reparations out is hard. That's BS, bro, because it takes an executive order. Like, would it have gotten vetoed? I don't know. It's an executive order. Trump made. I can't even put a count to how many executive orders Trump made in light of the fact that he couldn't get them pushed through Congress.
I think the important thing about the reparations is that it's a lot of different things that they may need to pass bills for. Because it is an allocation, because it is certain allocations of funds. And they can't only this is the Constitution. only Congress the House of Representatives specifically can allocate the funds.
But we now
he can make right? He could make an executive order and say, I think he can just make an executive order and say, we're going to do a robust, we're going to allocate some. I'm going to switch some funding around. I'm going to do something for Black people.
I keep asking him.
I don't think
we watched Cornel West before we got on this show. Cornel West blew my mind with this. Something like 700 and what was it? Trump signed a $750 billion bill for the military.
Well, that's always they do that all the time.
60 cents to every dollar goes to the military. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not mad because I like to feel safe where I live. And granted, but there's 97 countries and we have military operations in 128.
Right.
And you can't tell me you can't take a couple 150. Because I'm not saying.
Because the reparations package that's been asked for by the U.S.
It's trillions. I know, and that's again. Yeah. We're talking about. I'm anti-BS.
Trillions.
Trillions. Like, come on, man.
Wait, slavery was long. Man.
I'm not saying it wasn't, and I'm not saying like us going through the Jim Crow era wasn't long as well. I mean, like I'm 41. Happy birthday to me in a couple of weeks, August 4th. By the way, y'all, if y'all pay attention. But I'm 40. I'm 41. You what? You're in your late 30s, right? We haven't been alive but more than maybe 9 or 10 years since we had civil rights.
Exactly.
And I got into this with somebody the other day. I got into this with an older white dude. I was like, bro, you were still alive when you could still call me a nigger without repercussion.
Well, I mean,
you can still
I don't care about
that. It's not that I care about it. What I'm saying is they'll always say, reparations isn't that big a deal because you guys have equal rights now. Mm-hmm. The time frame that it don't match. It just don't match up. If you had 50 some odd years of equality with you, we're not even talking about an economical gap now. We're talking about a social gap where we don't have this. We've never been treated the same way and we're still learning how to just work out how to use those civil rights to our benefits. And you can't expect us to understand that. And one thing that helps people understand and develop and grow those understandings and those ideologies is funding. And when we had Black Wall Street and when we had those things in place, they systematically, even after we had gotten away from the thought process that we were slaves, and even though we were still marginalized, they found systematic ways to push us back.
Well, not even systematic. They would go against their own system to push us
back. So you got to understand, like
it was malicious. It's malicious. The maliciousness of it at that
point. Like the vicious attack on ADOS, because I'm not going to say black or white, because I'm really glad that friend of the people put me on the Cornel West interview on Joe Rogan's show. The colorism of America has always been something that's even worse than the racism in America, because they have always thought Black people are not intelligent enough to know how to do what they need to do to be successful. They've always thought that. And it's not African American, it's Black people. Because even when Africans come over here, until they prove they're smart enough to do a doctor's job, they got to still deal with the fact they're African. They do witch doctor shit. That's the kind of shit you'll hear from the uneducated white people that throw me for a loop. But all in all, it's just reparations isn't even something that shouldn't even be so much about money, because once you start talking about money, me and him was talking about this shit like what Cornel West was even talking about, or even beyond that. And Killer Mike has a great show where he talked about spending money in the Black community. It ain't gonna even stay with us. We don't even have the money. We won't even have the money long enough for it to be seasoned to even be considered valuable assets to us.
Right. So all those questions and more are going to be covered tomorrow.
I was just say that executive decision,
because hopefully, there's a great some great conversation. I'm not totally against the whole ADOS movement in total, but there's some real indictments I have against it, some real criticism I have, and I'm gonna hold this guy's feet to the fire and just see if we can't get some clarity, because obviously, apparently, I could be misunderstanding the movement, and then there's Could you
ask me one question for me, even beyond the executive?
Write it down. I'll get to it. Write it down. That way, I'm forgetting you ask me on the show. I'm like, okay.
I didn't watch our show, bro. No, I just said, and this is the question that I was like, if you read the ADOS statement, the mission statement, one of the very key factors in that statement that I have a hang up on is the eligibility process. I want clarity on that.
Well, they don't know, and see, they want to say ADOS, but if you have great grandparents, you have 16 sets of those.
Yeah.
How many of those have to be ADOS for you to be ADOS? Because
well, I mean, somebody has to have some kind of ideal about what they're trying to say. That's just a question. And like I said, I'll write it down for you before I leave because I would like to know. I mean, and if I could call in, you know how I'm gonna do. You know me. If y'all know D. Johnson.
I just watched a documentary today about a bunch of white people that were slaves. I mean, that are descendants of slaves. White people, descendants of slaves.
You talking about the indentured servants, or you talking about actual
and don't
slaves?
forget the whole. It's going to be like again $10 Indian thing where people are signing up for it.
I got you.
Because a lot of black people don't even know who their daddy is and who's going to trace their, let alone can trace their family tree, let alone trace their family tree back to slavery and say who exactly it was.
My nose pointing as hell. I could have had an Indian for a daddy. I know that there's Indians.
First person taking that first cut of that reparations money gonna go to Ancestry.com.
No cheap plug. We get 10% of whatever you get.
Right. We need that. Okay, so moving right along, I want to talk a little bit about
everyone's gonna get reparations. They call that welfare, sir. Everybody should be getting welfare.
I want to talk a little bit about another movement.
What's good?
I want to talk about the BDS movement.
Oh man, you in these movements? Where do you find this stuff?
Well, they're a movement. They moved me.
All right, so put
somebody
me
just taps me on the shoulder and just says, "Oh, movement."
All right.
Okay, the BDS.
How you educating me?
I'm gonna go to the BDS movement website.
Right, let me go grab my jack, man. This should be charged up enough. I'll be right back, y'all.
Okay. So the BDS movement has been in the scope today, this week. There was actually the BDS movement has actually been in the scope this week, actually because this week the Congress, the House of Representatives, passed a resolution that condemned the BDS movement while still affirming a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine, and also basically protecting or affirming the right to free speech and protesting for everyone. Now, the BDS movement stands for Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions. So that's the BDS. Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions. And when they're talking about boycott, divestment, and sanctions, they're speaking implicitly or specifically about boycotting Israel and Israel products, divestment from Israel and businesses, Israeli businesses, and sanctions against Israel in an effort to create a solution between them and the apartheid that's going on in Palestine from the Israeli government at this time.
Yeah, no, I this is the kind of movement that I'd like to get behind, because the things that Israel's doing in a very I won't even say Palestinian country, but what they're doing in an area where Palestinians deserve just as much as they have, they're taking more from them. Like, they literally have started to go in and destroy homes in the Gaza Strip.
Right.
And that's it's ridiculous. Like, they've been working on a peaceful solution, but every time I see the animus, it's coming from Israel. Right. It's not coming from the Palestinian side. And if it does, it's in retaliation to, the death of children.
Well, the reason it's not coming from the Palestinian side, is because Palestinians have lost their voice.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and it's
groups
like BDS, groups like the PLO. They are the voice for the Palestinians. They're living in a situation where they're marginalized in terms of, it's almost like, if you could imagine
a terrorist
Jim Crow
organization by who? The United States of America.
Well,
they dictated them.
But also the PLO. Let's not, because we got to call this like it is. Let's not act like the PLO is not a terrorist organization. Hold on, because the PLO, at first, after the death of Yasser Arafat,
yes, sir.
They, in the elections after the loss Hamas took over the PLO.
That is true.
And
I
to
am
say that
not gonna say
Hamas
they
is
didn't.
not,
Hamas
Hamas is, they want to bring about the destruction of Israel for and a Palestinian state.
They don't care how it
terror.
happens.
So I'm not going to act like they're not.
I
They
agree,
are
but
a terrorist
the fact
organization.
that PLO didn't start that
But
way.
let's juxtapose that
Yes, sir.
on the BDS movement. Now, the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, that's exactly what Nelson Mandela was doing in response to apartheid in South Africa.
Right.
You're right. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions, a peaceful demonstration. Now, as far as Congress is concerned, our Congress passed a resolution condemning BDS, but upholding their right to protest still, upholding their right to protest and their First Amendment rights, but also expressing that they want a two-state solution. Now, as I look into what's happened between the Palestinians and the Israelis more and more, I was more on the fence about a two-state solution where we have Israel and Palestine, and they have their own countries and they live in peace.
Yeah.
I don't know. The more I read about it, the less I'm interested in a two-state solution.
Wow.
Because Israel doesn't really belong there. Because it was Palestine before Israel came there. Now Jewish people began to move into that area and buy land and things of that nature, right? But I think that the actual national plug that they got from Great Britain of this is a sovereign nation, and it's a hot button issue that in the United States leads to destructive political agendas. We have the AIPAC lobby, who basically wrote this BDS condemnation. They wrote it. Everybody else just kind of signed off on it. They wrote it. They wrote it, and you let a lobbyist basically write this denunciation, and then you sign it as a congressperson. Only 17 members of Congress did not sign it or did not vote for it. That would be AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. So you're expecting.
So you're the squad.
Yeah. No, but there was a member of the squad that actually voted for it.
Presley?
Presley did. Okay. And Tulsi Gabbard voted for it.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's very interesting. Tulsi. For sure.
No, but Tulsi actually was one that came out with a video actually talking about why she voted for it.
What was her explanation?
Her explanation was this: that she's interested in a two-state solution.
Okay.
That she wanted to uphold the freedom of protest for everyone, including BDS, but she did not believe that BDS itself, that group, was the way to solve those problems. Because if you talk to, I looked on not on the BDS website, but I read an article. Mind you, it was written by a rabbi.
Okay.
From Minnesota, from Ilhan Omar's district, actually.
Okay.
And the rabbi at the largest synagogue in Minnesota, and he says that that the leader of the BDS movement is not interested in a two-state solution. That they're doing this because they want Israel gone, but they know that violence is not going to get it.
Right. Because it ain't worked this long. It ain't worked this long.
Secretly, there's no been. You ever notice that when we're talking about nuclear weapons and the nuclear proliferation, that all the countries that are part of the nuclear proliferation treaty, right, promising to not make new nuclear weapons, right, to help other nations that don't have nuclear weapons still have nuclear programs for energy, right? That's nuclear proliferation. Now, Israel did not sign and is not a member of the nuclear proliferation regime pact. So they could have as many nukes as they want. They could make as many nukes as they want. And I think that if the shit gets too hairy in the Middle East for them, they wouldn't be afraid to use them. That's why you see countries like Iran saying, well, we've got to have nuclear weapons. Israel will not disclose whether they have nuclear weapons or not. They've never said they don't. I'm almost 100. And what part of the treaty is that the U.S. has promised to never give another country nuclear weapons.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that Israel has a nuclear program.
Oh man, well, let's put it this way: if Israel doesn't have a nuclear program, then
Nuclear.
they don't have a nuclear program. They're well on their way, or they're being helped with it. Because I can't imagine that the U.S. would not try to make sure the U.S. or the U.K. would not want one of their allies to have the same push button power as Iran does.
Well, what they're calling Israel, and what the reason that they use it is it's the last democracy in the Middle East, if you can call it that. I believe that if you have built a wall, because they built the wall.
Yeah,
they actually built the wall to keep the Palestinians out. But meanwhile, they're still land grabbing in land set aside in a treaty, the Camp David Treaty for Palestine. The Palestinians have very little land. They have no sovereignty. They have very little autonomy. They have sanctions, put on. They're treated like second-class citizens. They're in what is essentially an open-air prison in their own country. And so I don't believe that the country that's responsible for that, it could ever be called a democracy. It's a loose
It's a
democracy.
very loose term for it.
Right.
I don't think they want to. I think that because democracy is something that America's trying to establish there. Because I mean, they tried the same thing in Iraq. You know what I mean? They went in as soon as they destabilized Saddam Hussein and they got that whole regime out. The first thing they went and told them was, you have to set up a democratic solution.
Right.
So I think that they try to use Israel as the way to get that done. But then when you look at what Israel's doing to the Palestinians in that area, it's not necessarily. That's why I could understand the two-state movement.
Okay, so let's look at a little bit about what BDS says about itself. So I'm on the BDS website here, and it says, "What is BDS?" So we can learn about BDS together, you guys.
Let's do this.
Boycott, divestment, sanctions movement works to end international support for Israel's oppression of Palestinians and pressure Israel to comply with international law. Okay, learn more. Okay, boycott, divestment, sanctions is a Palestinian-led movement for freedom, justice, and equality. BDS upholds the simple principle that Palestinians are entitled to the same rights as the rest of humanity.
Can't see any problem with that.
That's a simple principle. Let's see how. Israel is occupying and colonizing Palestinian land, discriminating against Palestinian citizens of Israel, and denying Palestinian refugees the right to return to their homes. Inspired by South African anti-apartheid movement, and again, it's directly out of what the things that Nelson Mandela directed in South America to lead his people out of an apartheid, of terrible apartheid. So BDS. I said South America. Okay, South Africa. There's a lot going on in South America.
There's a lot going on in South Africa. That's a whole other can of worms.
BDS urges action to pressure Israel to comply with international law. BDS is now a vibrant global movement made up of unions, academic associations, churches, and grassroots movements across the world. 13 years since its launch, BDS is having a major impact and is effectively challenging international support for Israeli apartheid settler colonialism. Ooh, so that's some keen words.
That's some words. That's some hot soup right there. That's some word soup to dig through. And I mean, I like it because at this point we haven't seen any type of cooperation on the Israeli side with the Palestinians. I mean, yeah, we could say that they're a hostile bunch of people to deal with, but I think if you were blowing up my homes and you were bulldozing me and pushing me further and further out of where I'm indigenous to, I would be a little upset.
And let's not make any bones about it. The only reason that Israel is able to do this type of thing is because of the help that they're getting from internationally, and the fact that there are plenty of corporations and things of that nature that help Israel oppress the Palestinians. Yeah. Now, which again is another reason to get these huge corporations out of power. You know what I mean? To bust up some of these guys and
yeah, I mean, definitely
make sure that not only are they treating workers fair, make sure they're treating workers fair, but also making sure that's right, that they're not affiliating themselves with discriminatory interests. Exactly.
The business practices a lot of these large corporations like your Nestle's, I mean, we can beat the dead horse, but that is Amazon to death. So I don't even want to get into that one. But just like, I mean, some of these other some of these other large corporations, their whole goal is to just basically make sure that wherever they have interest, wherever the money is coming in, largest from their interest, that they're supporting them correctly. And I don't like it. So I'm glad that he brought the BDS movement to my attention. I'll do me a little homework on it. I'll probably have a little bit more to say about it at a later time. But, you know, forcing Israel to follow international law is definitely necessary at this point, because in that region, they're probably the most contentious, or that's not the word I'm looking for, but they're probably the most, they're probably the hardest to deal with for the people that are living in that area too. And are probably the hardest country to work with as far as the Palestinian movement is concerned. And it doesn't seem like there's any condemnation that comes to Israel when they do some pretty outlandish things, like just randomly shoot missiles into an area that's loaded with innocent civilians. I mean, the UN might say a thing or two here, but you don't hear it coming from the US. You don't hear it coming from the UK. And as Friend of the People very eloquently put it, you do not hear it from these corporations where, I mean, if that's where I think a lot of the onus should start too, is we're just not going to do business with you. Like, there should be sanctions applied to you if you're killing innocent women and children. You should. There's just no reason you should be allowed to get away with it. There's no reason you shouldn't be held accountable for it. And more importantly, there shouldn't be any reason you're allowed to continually do it. But, you know, gotta wait for my man to get back real quick. While we have this break in the show, gotta actually say thank you to Soulbox Heroes for being the premier place to come for unbiased opinion, great conversations, good debates, live debates. Also like to say, you know, thank you to you guys for tuning in, paying attention and keeping up with us, because I know we be on the road, we off the rails sometimes, but you know, we just trying to make sure we keep it live and popping and fresh for you. One thing I'm gonna talk about until we get back. 5 police officers in New York have been found dead committing suicide, and they say that there's a very large mental health issue that's growing in the community there with the NYPD. I think it comes down to a lot of the reforms that they've gone through over the last couple of years. It's a very stressful job. But again, I mean, the stop and frisk policy was taken away from them. I think it's very hard to be a cop in police or a cop in New York because it's a very difficult job. And I think that they should be more look into the mental health of police officers on a whole. Honestly, because I was watching an incident in Las Vegas where a guy was, you know, he's selling water on the strip, may or may not have had a permit. They didn't really get into that, but the public is videotaping the police doing their job, and it's very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous because at that point you're compromised as a police officer because you're outnumbered. You know, you're trying to administer law in a fair and safe manner, but you have to do it under a microscope now. The proliferation of recordings has made it very difficult for a cop to operate within the right realms where it's not. Is it police brutality? Like the guy is clearly on his ass and he's telling him to get on his stomach. And I mean, if you're getting arrested or you're getting detained and you're actually, and there's no way to prove whether, just do what they tell you. And I know that some of you guys probably gonna say that sounds like the worst advice ever. But if you got family or you trying to make it home at the end of the day, you don't got a gun and they do, or you don't have the weapons, or you're 2-1 and the 2 cops won you, just take the L for a hot minute. I can't say that any other way. I just take the L for a hot minute. But at the same time, being a police officer, I mean, you got to think they're coming home at the end of the day knowing that you're heinously hated. I watched a video the other day where a cop was, they didn't even respond. And I completely felt bad for, and I do not necessarily like police officers as a whole, but they were doing their job. And there's no reason. Well, I agree with you, Tom. I'm not saying they were in any danger, but when the public perception of you is that they need to protect themselves and you can thank you. You know what I mean? And that's been one of the rhetorics that people have been against the police with for a long, long time now. It's like, how are you the one scared when you got the gun, you got the baton and the pepper spray and the taser? And all I am is just me. I mean, they don't never know who has a gun, but you're trained to deal with it. You're not supposed to be in danger because you're trained to know that danger is going to happen. It's a part of your job. But the police in New York, I mean, they were getting pelted with water and it might have been hot. So I wouldn't mind it. But I mean, the fact that you just don't get the respect. Police used to have respect. It used to be. So I grew up in the 80s, the 70s, and the 80s, and all the way up until the early 90s, we weren't worried about the police coming down the block as kids. We waved to the cops and whatnot. 1992, everything changed. They beat the shit. Trying to keep my mouth. I agree with that too. I agree that they abused that kid. I agree, but the public doesn't make it any better by being in their face. You record it, you move on. But you're making them feel I guess to say it the right. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that they're not helping that kid by doing that. They're not, because now they feel like they got to rush through their job to get control of the crowd.
But what were they doing?
Oh well, they choked the kid out. They're recording
the thing. They were recording it, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's actually helping the police do their job. If they're doing everything on the up and up. If they're doing everything on the up and up.
Oh yeah, they did.
A person coming up and recording. Why a police officer? If I'm a police officer and I'm doing everything by the book, I'm thanking people for coming and recording. Why? Because there's people that report things on the police that didn't really happen.
True.
Thank you for recording so you can see what I'm doing and doing my job.
But
only people that are worried about the only cops that have a problem with cams, body cams. Only cops that have a problem with the public being around and watching. Only cops that try to block stuff that comes up when they come up to a scene and you see the one that's like, no, everybody get out of here, and they're trying to block shit, are the ones that know that there's bullshit going on and they're protecting other people from doing bullshit. But let's dig into the suicide.
Las Vegas Metro, they gonna lose that chokehold is the same reason Eric Garner is not with us today. And that is one of the people said something in that video that is 100% true. Cops need to be retrained.
Definitely.
There has to be a different way to get somebody to comply with the law than choking them till they're unconscious. That is horrible. And I can see why you would have had tears in your eyes, because that hurt me more than anything else. Now, I do say that, again, it's a stressful fucking job, and that's where I started this conversation, is talking about the mental health. Because 5 cops killing themselves in 2 months, are these cops starting to question what they're doing? Are they but you know what was the one person that they got in the video was a black woman, and that was kind of I didn't know whether it was white women that were yelling, I didn't know if it was black women that were yelling, but the one thing that I took from it was that they were saying that you saying him resisting arrest does not make him resist. That does not make it resisting arrest, and we all know that going to court, that's how they do it. Oh, he was resisting arrest. Wow, how? Oh, because he wouldn't comply with the orders. Sometimes, when you ask somebody to do some shit that they don't think is logical, like if I'm selling water and I ain't do shit, like they called it a crime scene. I didn't see a crime getting committed. I still don't know whether the man had a permit or not. And I don't see them asking for one. I see them choking the dude, though. I see them choking the dog shit out of this little kid. And I couldn't tell you whether it was a kid or it was a grown man, but all I know is I saw somebody go limp and under another chokehold. And we're not winning on a grand scale, because they took it to federal court for Eric Garner, and they found that there was nothing wrong with it. And that's bullshit.
No, that's not what happened.
No.
What happened was, when
they took it to the when they took the case to a federal court for Eric Garner, they found that the police officer did not break the law by applying the chokehold. And that's what I'm saying. Police need to be retrained, but it has to come from the top. You can't have cases and they paid out a civil suit for that. They paid out a civil suit for Eric Garner. So there's already an admission of wrongdoing by the NYPD. But the federal government said, no, there wasn't anything done wrong. He proceeded under the color of law to detain a suspect. And that's what's part of his training. So again, they needed to be retrained. Oh, and I did not know that, Ty. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I did not know he was a youngster. You can better believe Las Vegas Metro is going to eat shit for that.
Maybe.
Oh, no. You have to watch the video.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
We done seen people get shot. We done seen people get killed on video.
But that's what I'm saying. Like Eric Garner.
I'm saying maybe. I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, okay, but what the fuck is that?
I mean, he got a couple million.
Yeah, they shot Arthur Lee Tucker back in Riverside back in
I remember that.
In 1990. That was my homeboy. That was a very close friend of mine. They shot him in the back 6 times. He was 15 years old. He was running away. He had crashed a car. He carjacked somebody.
Okay.
They ran away with a car, shot him in the back. The police told him they were going to kill him. They told his mom prior to the killing they were going to kill his son. She was going to kill him. Gave her $2.1 million. This was like back in 1996. And this is and so I mean, what's the damn life worth? Hey Tanika. How you doing?
And that's what I'm saying. Like there has to be a training that takes into account not everybody's gonna want you to put their hands on. Like there was a story even more recently in Corona, and it was a 18-year-old kid had mental deficiencies, and he was shot dead in the store by an off-duty police officer. And keep in mind, the news coverage for this has been scant, and this is where I hold media accountable for this bullshit, because I don't understand how the fuck this wasn't this isn't a national story, because you're talking about mental health for cops killing themselves, but this cop was an off-duty police officer in a store full of civilians and shot another civilian without being able to identify himself as a police officer. Because when the news aired, I was watching this as it aired, they actually thought it was an active shooter in progress. But when they started sifting through the story, they found that this police officer felt threatened by this kid because he was large and he was acting out, but the kid had mental deficiency, and to the best of anyone else's knowledge that was family to him, had never had that kind of a problem before.
No, is that the one that just happened where the dude was in front of his house?
No. That's not that. I didn't even know about that one. This happened probably in May or June, and it took a while. And this is how screwy that story was. It took almost 3 weeks before we found out it was an off-duty cop. How did they not know that night? They kept it under lock and key because they don't want the perception to be that police do things wrong. But they do. And I mean, that's the best thing you could ever say. They need to be trained to understand that, and not everybody is accepting it. You put your hands on them. Not everybody has the mental capacity to understand sometimes. Get the freeze or get down. You know what I mean? And I get it.
You talking about the Costco group?
Mm-hmm. And I get that they're trained to do what they have to do, but we do have to take like if you're part of the Fraternal Order of Police, even the new mayor of Chicago. I'm sorry, the new mayor of Chicago said, "Police, it's bullshit. It's Mickey Mouse bullshit."
So the name of the man was they're not giving me the name
because he was a kid.
The Costco in Corona.
The cop? Yeah, the Costco.
I used to work in that Costco.
Me too.
Crazy.
But
Lillian Vasquez is the mother of the victim.
Yeah.
And the son was 25 years old. They could give his damn name. Oh, Kenneth French is his name.
Yeah. Justice for Kenneth French, by the way.
Kenneth French.
Because they did
push the officer while waiting in line for samples. According to his family's lawyer, LAPD, the attorney for the officer says he was briefly knocked out after the attack. I fear people are going to be afraid of people with autism when things like this happen, says Vasquez, vice president of the Autism Society in the Inland Empire. While mentally disabled people are no more likely to act aggressively than the general population, advocates say, dealing with public meltdowns and socially inappropriate behavior is a constant reality for many caregivers. And for the most part, they're well versed in how to ease that anxiety that triggers such flare-ups. So if the cop was knocked out, would you get up and shoot him after
Yeah.
he woke up? After he woke up?
I'm trying to figure out how hard you had to push somebody
You
to
could
knock
have
them
hit. Well,
unconscious.
Costco, you know the floor's concrete.
It's concrete, but I mean, I'm
You hit
still
your,
going
you get knocked over.
If you're a
unawares.
cop, I've watched the training videos. They go, you take elbows all the time. But I'm not saying that he couldn't have
He
been
got-
knocked unconscious.
But he got knocked
But
down.
to get knocked out and wake up and immediately go for your service pistol, which you probably shouldn't be carrying in Costco anyway. But you can because you're allowed to carry a concealed weapon. But
if you're at work, you're supposed to.
Why
you
wouldn't
have
you
your
call the
pistol on.
police?
If you're at work and you're a cop, you gotta have a pistol on.
But he was off duty. That's my point. Why didn't he call the police?
He was. So it was just a firearm, it wasn't a service pistol.
I mean, probably was a service weapon. My
He
point is
was
still,
plain clothes. He wasn't.
he was plain clothes.
Okay, then he wasn't a police officer.
At that time, he wasn't.
You're not a police officer when
you're off duty. When you're off the clock, you're not a police officer. But you still have the right. You still have the responsibility to protect because you're sworn an oath to protect the public. But at that point, if you were aggrieved against, you're a part of the public. You call the police. You don't. That's just, in my opinion, that would have been the safe and smart thing to do.
The name of the police officer, Salvador Sanchez. Sanchez was getting a food sample for his son when he was attacked and briefly knocked out by 32-year-old French.
I don't know, man. I just feel it's. My point going back is, it is a hard job to do, but if there's mental health issues within the department, there's one thing that I will say. If there's not,
he didn't just shoot the boy, the kid. I mean, the man with autism.
Who else did he shoot?
Civil rights attorney Del Galipo, who was representing the French family, said Kenneth's father stepped between the two men and explained his son had a mental disability. Sanchez then shot French, his dad, and his mom, who were both hospitalized in critical condition.
That's right. I did remember. He killed the son, but the other two people lived, so I didn't really think to include them. But that's my point. There's two tests you have to pass to be cop. One's mental health, or one's a mental exam, and then one's a physical exam. So if there's going to be reform for the employee or for the police that need to be retrained, whoever's doing these mental evaluations, they need to be retrained, and if not, held criminally liable if they're letting rogue people get through the system. Because you can't. That's your job. That's part of the problem too. If we're going to go a little bit deeper, that's part of the problem too. Is the people that are supposed to be the filters aren't doing the job correctly. Because that's something you're supposed to be able to find out. Like, you shot 3 people, 2 of which weren't even a threat to you. That's here. That's not. Oh my God, I was scared. That's here. I was embarrassed, and I got a gun, and I can get even with you. And I can get it because I'm a police officer.
I don't understand why he shot the button.
I mean, because that was their kid.
Got another story?
I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about the ASAP Rocky thing, because now they got a fan that got arrested for saying he was going to blow up the Swedish parliament. But we already touched on that. I'm just scrolling through the news here, trying to, we decided to not make it so formal this week. Just wanted to kind of hit y'all with some hot topics and good stuff, because we're about controversy.
If you're watching right now, something you want to talk about, go ahead.
Put it in the notes, put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat.
I'm trying to find something to talk about. I saw this thing about Dan Coates leaving post as the director of national intelligence as Trump selects Representative John Radcliffe as replacement. I don't know too much about the story, but I do know that Trump likes to say that our intelligence community is the strongest intelligence community in the world.
But when he first got in,
there was
something wrong with the CIA, something wrong with the FBI that he wanted to criticize them. So, and it's not like it ain't the same people.
So I see why. So there's a paragraph that simply reads: Coates frequently appeared out of step with Trump during his 2-year tenure, and their frayed relationship reflected broader divisions between the president and the government's intelligence agencies. Now, one of the things that you'll immediately know is that James Comey was on the FBI. So, I mean, Trump has not had the best of times dealing with his own intelligence agency. But I mean, if I want to be a funny man for a second, which is something I do, it's because Trump does not deal with a lot of intelligence. So, I mean, it's just that's one of those stories for me where it's like I'm never surprised when I see head of the FBI change or the head of the CIA change within a year or two with Trump, because it's just he does not like when he finds out the things that he's saying or the things that he believes are BS. It's typically because the intelligence community, they know what the fuck is really going on, so they're like,
well,
that's not true.
So basically, Donald Trump has always been attacked the intelligence community in terms of their integrity, in terms of what they do, and I mean, okay. I mean, we already know, especially as Black people, the FBI, CIA, their history when it comes to us, it's not a far reach to say that they've actually done corrupt things and they're actually been compromised and things of that nature. Also, the CIA, I think one of the most egregious things lately that the CIA did was during the Obama administration, actually funding and starting coups in Libya that led to the ousting and eventual death of Muammar Gaddafi.
Indeed.
And then also the Central Intelligence Agency and their inroads into Venezuela and causing instability there, as well as the things that they've done in terms of leading destabilization in the Northern Triangle. So, I mean, when Trump criticizes the intelligence agency, that's not a very far reach. However, his reasons for criticizing intelligence agencies, that is where the problem is. See, Trump doesn't criticize them and then bring up these kind of instances. He criticizes them because these intelligence agencies and the FBI were investigating him for links to Russia. So it seems like, Trump it's more important for someone to be loyal than competent. And
Indeed.
if you're disloyal but competent, or you're doing your job, if your loyalty lies to the United States of America as opposed to your loyalty lying to to Donald Trump. Donald Trump seems to have a problem with that. And so that's why that's a reason for his criticism of these intelligence agencies. So his intelligence agency, intelligence director did resign there, and we'll have more information on that coming up. But
here's a story that is
this is the story.
Which one?
This is the story about Elijah Cummings. Donald Trump attacked Elijah Cummings and his district earlier yesterday. And he did it in a way that could only be described as racist, just as racist. And it's sad that it's going to be there's normalcy to Trump and racism. If I call Trump out as being a racist, or I tell you he's racist, or I point a policy out as being racist, it's almost like an eye roll at this point. But we can't turn a blind eye to his racism. We have to continue to bring it out.
Do you think, and this is something that's been a raging debate, at least in the circles that I hang out with, do you think that the racism that Trump represents is actually causing people to be more overtly racist?
Of course.
And then this is the other half of it. Or do you think that it's causing people to believe that racism it's because it's already been here, it should just be the norm? Like, because me and my friend were talking about the fact that, I'm saying, like, he was saying Black people always complain about racism, right? He was like, but Black people can be racist too. He was like, Black people don't want to hang out with white people because they say that they're Trump supporters, like, and that's the way that you could say that they're racist because they're Trump supporters. And I'm like, well, I mean, you're just saying that Black people are trying to be racist towards white people. It's like, no, I'm saying anybody that is a Trump supporter, they consider them to be racist, and that's not true. But I mean, what's your opinion? Like, your take? Like, do you think that it's just become a norm to be racist no matter what it is, and it's just, or do you think it's more overt now that
you've got to understand what was going on before Trump became president? Because it's a compare and contrast. Before Trump became president, the white nationalist, neo-Nazi movements, these movements were on their last legs.
That is true.
I'm not going to say the racism was, But these movements were on their last
But
legs.
the groups that were powered by racism.
But now, what you've seen with Donald Trump is the emergence, re-emergence of the white nationalist, white ethnocentric, Eurocentric stance coming back and being platformed. You know what I mean?
Really true.
They wouldn't put, they wouldn't put you on the show if you were a racist. People would put you on their show.
I actually saw.
They wouldn't put you on anything. They would deplatform you.
I saw a Facebook Live, and it's about maybe 3 or 4 months old now, but it was a Facebook Live. It was in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and it was something about maybe 500-600 white nationalists in front of the memorial for Stone Mountain, Georgia, doing their thing. And that's something, I mean, in a state like Georgia, Stone Mountain, Georgia is not more than an hour away from Atlanta, Georgia.
Right. And so Trump and his Trump is ASAP Rocky trying to get the black vote. Don't ever think that.
Well, no,
what's going on is that Trump. I'm gonna go to the tweets because you guys got to hear what he said.
I do. I definitely got to hear. I always want to know what he tweets because it's like if there was one person on the planet who, because there was somebody complained after he made the tweets about AOC
because he came out today and he actually.
And they said, why didn't they take that down? Why didn't they remove it? Because they considered it hate speech, and Twitter responded, this is public records. You guys need this information to stay on here. If we delete it, then there's no way for us to ever be able to pull it back up and show you that he said it. And at some point, we all know it's going to come up, and he's going to distance himself from it. He's going to try and put it a little bit. I don't remember. I mean, that. And they're going to bring it up on Twitter, in Twitter's face, and be like, look, it's still here again. And that is when we'll see, the backpedal, the smoke and mirrors that always comes with it, because at some point, he just flipped the script on that whole situation and said, they're racist. I was flabbergasted. Huh? You told them to go back where they came from, and they responded with, that is the most xenophobic and bigoted thing you can say. And you respond with, well, you're racist? The man confounds me. I get frustrated all the time when I try to understand what he says on an intellectual level because the man just simply confounds me. I've been waiting on somebody to wake me up and tell me this is a bad dream, but.
Okay, so Trump says this. He says, Elijah Cummings spends all this time trying to hurt innocent people through oversight. And he put oversight in quotation marks. He does nothing. He does nothing.
He did.
He does nothing for his very poor, very dangerous, and badly run district. Take a look, and they're showing some, I guess, squalor in West Baltimore, and saying that Baltimore is the worst place, right?
Oh, so that explains, because I saw a story ago where Michelle Obama came after him hard body for that, about what he had to say about Baltimore. That explains it. I mean, bro, what I really cannot stand about Donald Trump.
And they actually found some black people that actually would, were talking smack about Cummings too.
I get that. But here's the thing, man. You're the president of the United States. All of this is your problem. You are literally the president of the United States. It can't be no one other person's problem, because the United States is your district. And that's something that a lot of these bipartisan Congress people aren't realizing. We're talking about a president that isn't trying to make his country better. Mm-hmm. And that's he's pointing out the flaws with Ilhan Omar getting home, and look how she has these people waiting for her. That's just disgusting. But he's not talking about Flint, Michigan. I mean, who's the representative running that district? But even if you're not doing a good job and these people are living in squalor, then why aren't you stepping in to help? You can give out billions of dollars for a military budget, but you can't step in. You can't do your job. Your job is you're a servant of the people.
Right. I want to give more Trump. I want to give some more Trump tweets about Elijah Cummings. It's so sad that Elijah Cummings has been able to do so little for the people of Baltimore. Statistically, Baltimore ranks last in almost every major category. Cummings has done nothing but milk Baltimore dry, but the public is getting wise to the bad job that he is doing. So, he's basically talking bad about it. There's a tweet that I think he took down, which I don't understand why. I didn't know he had any kind of decorum to take anything down, where he was referring to Elijah Cummings' district as rat infested. But the word infested, again, is being used whenever he talks about any of the people of color, any
ethnicity that is not
some kind of talk about some kind of infestation.
Excuse me, Anglo-Saxons. I'm not going to use the word white for a little while because colorism is something I'm trying to get away from because it doesn't help. But the people that look the same as him are not victim of the same rhetoric, even if they're on opposite sides of him. And this is a long stint. This isn't
the worst though.
Oh, I believe
if racist Elijah Cummings would focus more on more of his energy on helping the good people of his district and Baltimore itself, perhaps progress could be made in fixing the mess he has helped to create over the many years of incompetent leadership. His radical oversight is a joke. He's referring to the fact that Elijah Cummings is the chairman of the oversight committee, and he's been taking people to task on their oversight. So he has been absolutely great. I think that the best thing he's done, though, is actually setting AOC loose on them, on all sorts of people concerning fiscal spending and things of that nature. And then Elijah Cummings' scathing review of the Border Patrol in regards to the camps. He absolutely torched the director of the Border Patrol, director of Homeland Security. He absolutely torched them.
And rightfully so, by the way.
And Donald Trump, and when you're getting a response from Trump, from the bully pulpit of Twitter, it lets you know that you're doing the right thing. Yeah. I don't think that, so Elijah, you know what?
Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I know that, he's a blue dog. I know he's, old school Democrat. Not all men, but I think that he's you know what?
Elijah Cummings has kind of come under fire for a lot of different reasons. I mean, during the what's his name? Eric. What was the guy that got killed in the killed back maybe 4 or 5 years? Freddie Gray. He came under a lot of fire for that, and rightfully so from his own people because he wasn't helping the mayor at that time hold the police accountable. And so I'm not just gonna write. Right. I'm not gonna just write Elijah Cummings.
I don't know about Elijah. Is that Prince? Prince, is that you?
Yeah, I've been seeing somebody's comment. I didn't know who that was, though.
I knew if Prince was watching. If that's Prince, I would know if he's saying. I don't know about Elijah. Bro.
But I know I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. I don't give a lie. I'm not over here saying like, man, I can't believe he said that about Elijah.
But Elijah Cummings is. I can believe it when Donald Trump. I can't believe Donald Trump went so far as to call him a racist.
That's what. But here, that goes back to what I was saying a second ago, which is at this point, it's to take the fangs out of racism, for lack of a better term, you have to start making everyone racist.
Right.
And that's what I don't understand because the very definition of racism is to think that one's race is superior to another.
Tyrone. Yeah, Brad, I forgot.
You threw us for a loop because I saw you comment. But
I thought it was Prince or somebody.
You can't say, oh well, everybody's racist because we're not all superior. And if we are all superior, then why is it that you're talking about a rat-infested community? None of that adds up. It don't jive.
I tell you what's rat-infested. Trump Tower.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Tell them about it.
They've had health code violations.
Everywhere, wherever they are. So whether it's in Vegas, whether it's in New York.
Look up Trump Tower health code violations, and you will see a long list.
Come on, man.
Health code violations in Trump Tower, including rats. We can't. So let's not go there.
Before we part ways, because, we like we said, we promised we're going to try to keep it short. About an hour and a half.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it
I
short.
wanted to talk about another story that's like, it's saddening. It's horrible to read. I don't know if you heard about Yelena Gregorieva. I'm just saying that right. I hate saying Russian names.
You said it wrong, but it's okay.
Grigorieva, that's what I'll say.
They get our names wrong all the time, right?
She was an LGBT community activist in Russia, and recently she was murdered. And it's not that she was murdered, that's the whole story. The reason she was murdered is because there was a site that was created to actually hunt down and kill and reward for doing so members of the LGBT community that are in Russia. This is horrible on a global standard, because Russia is one of the superpowers, and they caught the guy. But the fact that there's a website that's dedicated to this that keeps coming around, and it's able to give people's personal information. It's able to give Elena received the image of a knife 2 days before she was murdered and stabbed to death. And in the day and age that we are, where you can track everything down to an IP address, that shouldn't happen in a free country or in a free society. Period. And I guess to say, if you're a member of the LGBT community, I feel your pain on this one, because everyone should have the right to do what they want to do. We're all human beings at the end of the day, and no one should be hunted for this. No one should be. You shouldn't feel like you have to. There shouldn't even need to be activism.
Some details that says that the murder was committed on domestic grounds.
Yeah.
During a conflict that arose between two people who had known each other previously, the investigative committee said.
Of course they're saying that, because the thing about it in Russia, because NPR actually, I was just reading the interview about it, and the craziest thing about it was that the person that actually killed her, they're saying that they knew her, but that was because her information had been shared over time, and he had continually been in her inbox threatening her. He had continuously been popping up in her neighborhood threatening her. Of course, they're going to run that spin that he knew her, because he did, because the information that was provided to him through that website. Like, I won't share the name of the website because I'm not here to do that.
The murder prompted a fellow campaigner to say Grigorieva had regularly received death threats in the past and reported them to the police, but they had not acted upon those threats.
Did nothing about it. So, it goes to say that Russia's very soft on this. And it goes also to say that that's why, as if you're an American, you're part of that LGBTQ community, you need to help your international partners, because there needs to be global awareness to this, so where you hold, I love the words the friend of the fire always, you need to hold Russia's feet to the fire on this one. You have to, because if that happens to somebody who's actually a prominent activist, you can imagine the type of people that are dying that don't have any name or any voice out there. Right. And if you're losing voices, you're going to continue to not be heard. And we have so much progression in the United States over the last 20 years.
And the Russian police said they're not treating the fatal stabbing of activist Elena as a hate crime.
How is it not very definition?
I mean, why? No, but what I'm saying is, why rule that out
immediately,
automatically? Right.
Because
they just captured the guy.
The sickle still.
They just captured the guy. Yeah. Just. I mean, why?
We both know every.
The person said, "I didn't kill her because she was gay." Like, that's all you have to say.
A blind
investigate a hate crime. If it's no hate crime, then fine.
Then find another reason why. But I mean, we don't immediately rule out something because you're trying to make sure you're not getting condemned on a global level for a human rights violation by saying, "Well, it's just a dispute between two people." That is not true. We all know that.
Speaking of condemn. It just goes. I gotta say this because just in case someone ends up watching this show that has a problem with us even talking about, because apparently Black people have so many problems, we can't talk about the LGBT community and say that they're discriminated against or say that they're marginalized in any kind of way or there's something wrong with us. We as Black people need to understand, need to realize that when we allow these types of injustices to go on around us and not acknowledge them and close our eyes to them and close our ears to them because the victim was not Black, then what we're doing is we're allowing people the opportunity and to close their eyes when things like that happen to us. When a Black person is shot down in the streets, and there's no justice for it, we cry out. We try to cry out to the community like, don't you guys care? Like, and we say you guys don't care. We don't, and we want them to care about what happens to us and care about our people.
Yes.
Well, in order to do that, you also do have to care about others.
To gain sympathy, you must have empathy.
And not even that. It's just the right thing to do.
Well, yeah,
it's not about. It's not even about. It's not even
it's
about quid pro quo, because you don't. To me, because when we allow things like this to go unchecked, we create an environment that festers and allows for other marginalized groups of people to be destroyed without justice. So we cannot, just because we're Black and we have our problems and we're here in America and there are social justice issues to think about, there are economic disparities to think about, we have our own set of problems within our community to think about. Just because we have those things doesn't mean we have to detach ourselves from our world citizenship.
Man.
Because once we do that, then we can we set ourselves up to be dehumanized.
Yep.
And everything that stems from all the problems that stem in terms of our relations with other races and things that have been done to us and things that we've encountered throughout the years of other races has stemmed from our dehumanization first, and then the dehumanization allowed people to have the attitude towards us that they didn't have to care about us.
Exactly.
They don't have to care about our children as much as they care about their children of another race and their children, because we're less than human. So, but when we turn around and allow other people to be looked at as less than human too, what we do is we perpetuate the attitudes. We perpetuate the attitudes from which these type of crimes and these types of marginalization happen. That's why we talk about what's going on in Palestine. That's why we talk about someone in the LGBT community. That's why we'll talk about someone that is disabled being marginalized, even though he's not Black, and being killed. That we talk about these things because it's something that's bigger than just the construct of race. And when you start to understand that the constructs of race were created for separation purposes, that when you try to put yourself in a category that's separate from the rest of the human race, you actually play into the hands of the people that are trying to dehumanize you. Exactly. So we do speak on issues of with other people, other races, of different experiences, of different ethnic groups, because we speak along the lines of what is right, what is wrong. And we inform people so that they can stand up and be counted and their voices can be heard. And we give a voice to people that don't have one. Okay. And so we're going to continue to do that. So if you don't like it, and you don't like the fact that we're not just talking about Black people and Black issues, and that we're people, we actually are world citizens as well as Black people, then you can go ahead. There are millions, literally millions of videos on YouTube and literally thousands and thousands of podcasts.
I promise you, Minister Farrakhan ain't gonna try to talk about nothing other than the Black people and none other than Muslim people.
Well, they have their lane. There are a bunch of Black people talking about Black issues and talking specifically to Black people all the time. There are plenty of them. There are plenty of people that get on and talk about marginalization of the Black community and what's going on. And I listen to those people and I talk to those people as well, because there's a time and place for that. But that's not our lane. You know what I mean?
We are here to inform you about all walks of life.
Exactly.
I am not a part of the Black race. I am part of the human race, ladies and gentlemen. And everybody's plight in this world means a little something to me.
Yeah.
And it does affect me on another level, because I know all these type of people from all of these different types of life. And at the end of the day, if we all aren't winning, then we're all losing. Right. I have one last shout out I want to say. Shout out to the people of Tennessee for the human chain against the ICE agent.
Yes.
That was awesome. Y'all all deserve a medal as a community. If nothing else, that should be the global standard of how you treat your people that you live next door to, because that ICE agent left because they told his ass, you ain't gonna take them.
And also, ICE can't force you out of your house. No, that's why they didn't run up and force him out of the car.
No, they got it because they didn't have that out of the car.
They didn't have the proper warrant.
And they would have. And all they tried to do, and they tried to threaten, they tried to cajole, and they tried to punk, and they tried to mistreat. And those people that made that human change said to them straight up and down, this is America, and we will stand up for one another where we live because these people have done nothing wrong to us.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about community. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about being a good neighbor. Get involved, people, because the time you may not think it helps all the time, but that shows you can make a difference just by getting involved.
Absolutely. And so that's our show. Thank you guys so much for watching it, sticking around with us. Like, subscribe, comment. Stay tuned to the Soapbox
Notification
Heroes
bell.
channel. The best is yet to come.
Always.
Peace.